Yes, we'll have this presentation in English only, and let's start it. Caroline van Korten, Martin Stiek, and Luc Bloemen.
The first question I'm starting to both of you, you have to decide who answers first. It's actually because you're both working with photography, but also on the boundaries with it. I was wondering what would be the most dreamed of location for presenting your work. Like if you could imagine any museum of any kind, art museum, animal museums, movie theater, whatever, because you're referring a lot to other imagery. What would be your favorite spot to have your work shown?
My favorite spot would be a place where they embrace me and where they really want to show my work.
Of course, that's anyway the basic condition. So
I don't have a dream of a perfect place or so.
But do you like the context of photography, a photography museum displaying your work, or would you actually find it even more interesting if it is in an environment where your work reflects upon?
I don't care.
Okay.
I do. I prefer my work in between other forms of art instead of only photography, because I experienced that if I show my work between only photography, people tend to read it only subject-wise, and well, that's not my intention. So that's why I like to show my work in different places.
Yes, but that's not what I meant. I also don't want to show my work in the context of photography only.
No.
No, but I mean, I'm open for everything. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's what I said first.
But it's preferably. I mean, I'm also showing between photographers.
But what's very important is for me really that people want to commit themselves to my work. That's first. That's the basis.
Shall I ask the next question?
And okay, so that kind of answered my question. It didn't, because I really hoped to have a special museum to have in mind. But okay, that's fine.
I have a comment because I know that Luc is crazy about zoological museums, and he goes there everywhere. And we're going to zoological museum here, so. A logical question, because
that could be a context.
Most of the images within your bird needs shelter.
Well, let me tell you about the Bird with Shelter project. To me, has to end up in an installation form, actually in 4 installations. And when you are starting to make an installation, then you are changing the space. So it could be in an art museum, but it could also be in a zoological museum. And you know, as an artist, you're related to art, and you're part of the art world. So I think a place for art is the best way to show art. I can show it on the street, and then people pass by because their mindset is not on art.
But for instance, with the project on the newspaper, didn't you ever think about getting to this newspaper saying, like, I have to great end?
They didn't have money for it. They didn't want to place a page, but I published a newspaper.
Yeah, but not like part of the usual newspaper.
No, I tried everything to do so. Yes. Yeah.
And did you, Martin, ever try to approach a cinema or anything to actually take this relation to movie making and photography to display your work?
Actually, with those movies, I prefer not to show it in a movie theater, because your mindset is too much movie then already, and I'd like to use this connotation of people to Hollywood, but not like do it too literally. So.
Can I ask you something about that? Because I find it interesting to show that you stand on the shoulders of others, and I find it interesting also to put myself in this enormous debate we call art. To me it's a debate.
Yeah.
I don't say I make art, I say I make things, and people can decide whether it's art or not. I'm not interested in the question whether it's art. But I'm connected to art. So I'm taking part of this enormous debate.
What's your question?
And my question is, you could also look at yourself when you make this connection to Hollywood cinema, that it could be interesting to have this debate within cinema context.
Yeah, that's possible. But I choose to not place it into cinema because for me then you approach it only that way. But I'm also interested in the way people behave. So like the observational part of the work. So when you place it in cinema, it's only like this cinema approach. And I'd like to keep it a little bit more open. So yeah,
I can understand it in a way that it's also more related probably to video art and to cinema.
Yeah.
A question to you. As we've seen Luke's work, but also I presented a few works of others. Have you ever thought of including imagery not made by yourself? I mean, you're referring a lot to imagery not by yourself, but at the end it's you making or like pressing the button?
Yeah, but what I find interesting is the connotation you have. So your lack of freedom in seeing new things, and so this library I talked about in your brain, but also in reality itself. So I really like to look at reality and snap reality without interfering. So. But still interfering in the way I present it, because I push the right button, I think, for the viewer to set his mind in a certain mode. But on the other hand, it's true what you see. I mean, I didn't interact. I was there, of course, so you influence the situation, but it is there. And even those portraits of the Ante series, the school pictures, it's staged, but not for me. Without me, it was staged as well.
But so you couldn't have imagined, for instance, the movie Play or Sutori to be made out of imagery that you would collect, and that would be your edit that makes it the narrative.
Yeah, but it could be. But I also like the act of filming or photographing and experiencing your own movie, like. Being free to edit whatever you like, and of course you can do it with found footage, but I also like to do it. I'd like to live my own movie at that time, because I'm really into what I'm filming, and I'm like excited, like, oh, what is she going to do now, you know? So I don't want to miss that part of it.
Have you ever thought about going into the moving image?
Yes, well actually I made a movie. I made several movies. Actually I did a lot of things. I started in, I think it was '92, I made a couple of 60mm movies. And in 2009 I presented a movie I made of my handicapped brother, a portrait of my handicapped brother, in the exhibition Niet Normaal.
Oh yes, that exhibition I know. And is it that you also, are you coloring your films? Are they documentary style or are they...
Yes, they're documentary style, yes. But to me it's always, yes, you try to catch, I try to catch something that I can't understand myself. So there are always things appearing when you're working that you can't understand yourself, and Well, to me that means that I've done anything, that I've done something that I did not know before.
And do you understand photography?
I don't know.
Do you think that there comes this point and then you will swap again to painting?
I don't know. It's a strange thing. Actually, I'm not particularly very interested in photography as a medium, as I'm not particularly interested in painting as a medium. I'm not interested in media. I'm interested in pictures. And I'm interested in art. And that can be anything.
Yeah, which is interesting because, I mean, your work is very much also...
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I mean, it's material natures, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only imagery.
Yes, but like when I made these collages and I showed them for the first time to people, they came in my studio and then they looked at it and then they started to touch them and feel what was collage and what was not. And so this sense of texture, and that has always been in my work. Maybe not in my film, but.
And talking about actually like your non-interest, I'm still very much interested in the love and hate stories with your main medium. I mean, it's not your main medium you're working with, but to you both, and I have it as well in my way of working with photography. You always have those hate and love moments, but at the end you choose your medium. So I'd love to hear from you what your love and hate moments were with photography.
You mean when you hate photography?
Or yeah, when you become aware of its limitations and then you...
Yeah, normally I like the limitations of photography. That's my love for photography as well. Because I'd like to make the viewer aware of the medium photography, which is in between what him and what he sees on the picture. So I emphasize the medium. So that way I love it. At a certain point when I started using video, I was totally into that, because you have like more time to tell a story and you have more tools to tell a story, like for example, time and music, sound. And at that point I thought, well, I quit with photography. I stick to videos, but well, I came back again, or in between, or now I make a series of photographs, but such a big series that it's almost a film. So,
and was this influenced by the invention, for instance, of the SLR, which now can film as well? Is it a technical influence as well? Why you choose them?
The video? No, it's on an old-fashioned video camera, shot on an old-fashioned video camera, so it was before that. But what's, I think, the technical development brought me into this, because you were able to have your own edit suite, and editing is the almost most important part of this work. So I was able to do it on a laptop, and before that wasn't possible. So. Now, everybody's able to make his own movie alone, without a crew.
And you using actually lots of papered media. Did you ever think about using stuff from a digital immaterial origin?
No, that's strange, and maybe I'm very old-fashioned in that sense, but I really have to feel the material. So
it couldn't work seeing on a screen, printing out and cutting out your laser jet print.
Maybe I never did, but and sometimes, of course, for small things I use Photoshop. But to me, that this physical thing of cutting, gluing together, and searching, and this limitation of that you can't enlarge images, but you use the real image as it is published in its size, that I find very attractive. And keeps me sharp. I mean, when I could enlarge things, then I could, then I would have, I would got a plan. And I don't work with a plan. The plan that I work with is more that I'm looking for a certain kind of situation, but I find the situations always. Sometimes, then suddenly they appear and they're okay.
And what I'm always very interested is those fascinations from outside, and but then in an artistic context, do you have any exhibitions, key works where you kind of felt like, yes, that's touching right my heart? So that which you actually also can relate to your work.
Well, when I was in Paris, I came across a wonderful museum, Musée de Moulage de l'Hôpital Saint-Louis. It's a museum for skin diseases from the period 1820-1900. And it exists of 5,000 castings of skin diseases, made in wax and colored. And the man who made it was proud of his work because all these castings are signed. And this I found, it was a kind of atlas of skin diseases, three-dimensional. And I've never seen such a thing before, and it was horrible to see. And, but I found it also enormously inspiring. This need to archive things and the history in that. That's I found most inspiring.
And you, Martine?
Well, what I immediately think of is not an exhibition or some artwork or something, but more like little games I used to play when I was a kid. After I made these movies, I realized that when I was 7, I walked to my school. I actually did the same, but then in sound. So I kind of recorded in my head the sound bites you pick up while walking to school from different parties, and then I made some kind of Dada poem out of that. But that's the same I did now, you know. So it's more like those games you play with reality that inspire me for my work.
Are there questions from the audience? Please come and join.
Everybody's tired and cold, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Are there any questions? Like, I mean, I'm also including
I have one addition. If you want to know more about Luc's video work, please take a look at the archive of the Choreography Center for Contemporary Art, because last year there was this time a showcase of his video work at Choreography. Great.
Okay, then I think.
Could I make an appreciation for what I thought was a fascinating program with three amazing visitors and some really incredible translation? I think it was a big effort and I really enjoyed it.
Well, can I make it if nobody? So my question is, actually, well, Dutch photography is really famous because of its playfulness and, playing with the reality, playing with media, playing with shapes, etc. So, and you also mentioned like the story from your younger period, and actually just popped up in my mind. What kind of kids were you? Like, what did you do? What did you create when we were kids? Because probably you created lots of cool stuff when you were kids or teenagers, and this also relates to the playing. Like, what did you play? You first.
Well, there's a very interesting story from my youth. I made a piece of art about it actually. When I was 10, there was a day in the summer when I was very bored and I was just walking around. And walking around, I came in the neighborhood of my school, and my school was closed that day. And I walked around the school and I noticed that the window of the ladies' toilet was still open, and I climbed in, and I walked around this school inside, and at our place at home we hated the director of the school, so I went into his office, and he had a big sheet on his desk, and I stamped it full with his own signature, and then I peed in his paper basket, and I started to throw the test pages out through the whole school. And the day after, I was a bit late. There was a big fuss going on around the school. Something terribly had happened. Something terribly had happened. So I said, oh, really? And then we're sitting in the class, and the director of the school came in the class and said, something terribly had happened. There was a burglar in the school. And everybody, oh, terrible, terrible. And me too, oh, terrible. And then he said, yes, and the burglar is in this class, and it's him. They pointed at me. I was betrayed. And I had to go to the police, and I found it was a bonus for me, going to the police, sitting there, you know, and all these questions, what I had done, and then I found out that this mirror they had, you could look half through it, and I could see another boy sitting next. Wow! So that is a bit how I was in my youth. I was a bit a dreamy boy.
Yeah, well, I don't have a story like that with police and stuff. But I think I was dreamy as well, like playing in my head the whole day playing. I was some character, and I walked around just like that. So I didn't play like games like with toys and stuff, but more like in my head playing. I was another character. That's it, I think.
And I mean, I'm not an artist, but when working for Folk magazine, I was once on my way to work, and I realized, like, oh, actually, as a kid, I used to make magazines myself, and then I thought, like, oh, it all makes sense. And I also remember that we had on our toilet those kachels.
Meetings?
Nee, kachels op de vloer. Tegels.
Oh, yeah, I didn't say it.
Well, it's got tiles. Yeah, the tiles on the floor, and it had a certain pattern, but like very straight lined. And I tried to figure out the similarities and no similarities. And when I worked together with the graphic designers on the magazine, I also found out, like, oh yeah, I really love getting those structures and lines.
But that's funny, it reminds me of the tiles in my toilet. Because I saw, like, you had this grey and white forms on it, like more things. But I always started looking for faces in it, and like every kid is doing, I think, and in the wood, on the walls and stuff. Yeah, like animals, monsters.
Yes, no, I want to say about this paper on the desk of the director. This paper was divided in the days of the month, so I put his signature on every day of the month. And actually, I regard it as my first conceptual art piece.